Hello everyone, Shalom from Jerusalem. It's a pleasure and honor to speak to you this evening about Hasmonean Jerusalem. I just want to use the opportunity and thank David. I'm sure many of you know him, and I want to thank him for many years of devotion and hard work in spreading pluralism among the Jews, not only here in Israel, but also in other parts of the world, in North America, South America, Europe, elsewhere. So thank you very much. Thank you very much, David. I would like to share the screen with you. I just want to make sure that you see my presentation. Please make some gesture. Do you see it? Okay, great. So as you can see, I will speak this evening today. I will speak briefly about Hasmonean Jerusalem, Maccabean Jerusalem, and I will speak about the fact that during this period, Jerusalem was both a temple city and a capital city, and this is something quite exceptional and unique in the history of Jerusalem. I speak about this issue in my course. Some of you may know that I teach a course on the historical geography, the cultural historical geography of Jerusalem each year at the Schechter Institute. These are fresh photos from our recent tours in the old city. And quite recently, we spoke about Hasmonean Jerusalem. By the way, you can see that all the students are wearing masks, of course. So this lecture today can be seen as a kind of a tour for you, for those of you who are located all around the world, and also I see that some people are living in Israel, so it can be as a kind of a tour in Jerusalem. So Jerusalem as a capital city and as a temple city. We all know, of course, that today, since 1948, Jerusalem is both the capital of the state of Israel, and here I show, of course, some photos of the Knesset, the Israeli parliament. And today, of course, Jerusalem is a temple city, a city holy to the believers from the three monotheistic religions, to the Jews, the Christians, and the Muslims, of course. But I can tell you that during most of the history of Jerusalem, Jerusalem was more a holy city, a destination of pilgrimage, and less a capital city. There were few exceptional periods in this notion. For example, during the time of David and Solomon, during the unified monarchy, Jerusalem was seen and was indeed the capital of the huge state that David and Solomon created. And it was, of course, also the place of the temple, the first temple. Here you can see a picture of Jerusalem of that time. It is also true for the Crusade period. The Crusaders who took Jerusalem from the hands of the Muslims at the end of the 11th century decided to turn Jerusalem and use it and to see it as not only a holy site, a holy place, but also as their capital, the place, the city where they ruled the entire region. It was Jerusalem. And also the British Mandate. When the English people, when they took over Jerusalem from the hands of the Turks at the end of the 1917, they also decided to see Jerusalem as the capital of the entire Eretz Israel. Jerusalem was not meant geographically. I think Jerusalem is not a very good place site to form a capital city. It's a hilly site, it's remote site, it's far from the shores, but it was also true for our period. The Hasmonean rulers, priests, and later kings decided that they will rule the area, the region, Eretz Israel. They decided they will rule Eretz Israel from Jerusalem. And they, of course, enlarged the temple, but at the same time, they built a huge palace in Jerusalem and ruled the Galilee, the Negev, the other parts of Israel. They ruled from Jerusalem. And this is something I think quite unique, and it is something that connects us, the Israelis, the Israelis who live in Jerusalem today and see Jerusalem as both a holy city and a capital city, and the Hasmoneans, the people that we will speak about today. These are not the only ties, I think, that connect the Zionist movement and the Maccabees. Look at this great poster, which is connecting between us and the Maccabees, between the heroism shown by the Maccabees and the Israeli soldiers. Bayamim Bahem Bazman Hazeh, so it is written here in this poster. 161 BCE, the Maccabees, and Israel, 1948. This is, of course, the War of Independence. And the bravery that was shown by the Maccabees is, of course, repeated by the Israeli soldiers in the War of Independence in 1948, of course. And you can see also an Israeli stamp that was issued at the beginning of the 1960s with Yehuda Maccabee on it. And you can see this book, Gibor HaKatan, the small hero, the story from the time of the Maccabees. So there are many, many ties and connections connecting the Zionist movement and then the state of Israel and us. For example, the torch that was lit next to Modi'in each year and was taken to Jerusalem. Look at these wonderful photos from the 50s and 60s demonstrating this. And this is, again, a great photo of the Israeli president, the second Israeli president, Yitzhak Ben Tzvi. Next to him, his wife, Rachel Yanait Ben Tzvi, and they are standing at the entrance to the house of the president in Shkunat Rechavia. And look what he is holding in his hand. This is a torch that was lit early in the morning next to Modi'in and then was taken to Jerusalem. Again, those of you who know the cities of Israel, knows the city of Jerusalem, Tel Aviv, etc. You know that many of the streets in our cities are named after the Maccabean heroes. Rehov Matityahu, Rehov Yehuda Maccabee, Rehov Miriam HaChashmonait, Rehov Elazar Maccabee. They are all over in most of the streets of the cities of Israel. Again, strong ties between us and the Maccabeans. The Zionist movement and the Israeli state needed heroes, and the heroes were, of course, those Maccabees. And also the usage of archaeology. Once in a while, we hear in the news, we read in the newspapers that coins from the Hasmonean period were found in various excavations in Jerusalem. Look at this small shred of clay. You can see that it's written on top of it, Horkanus, one of the kings of the Hasmonean period. And early today, I read in one of the newspapers, and those of you who read Hebrew can read Nes Hanukkah, the miracle of Hanukkah. A candle, an oil candle, was found in recent excavations in Jerusalem, and it is 2,000 old a candle. So we will speak about Jerusalem of the Maccabees, Jerusalem of the Hashmonean period, and we have to stress, to remind ourselves that a big change happened in our region, in the region of Eretz Israel, during the 4th century, when Alexander the Great took over our region, and also the land of Israel, and also Jerusalem. Then started the spread of Hellenism. And Hellenism was manifested not only in the usage of Greek language, not only in sculpture, not only in art, but also in the way cities were planned and developed. Jerusalem also was influenced quite heavily by the Hellenism, and clashes were developing between the supporters of Hellenism, between the Jews who adopted the Hellenism and others. And then, of course, the Maccabean revolt was happening. It lasted from 1967 until 160 BCE, and it was led by the Maccabees against the Syrians, against the Greeks, and against the Hellenistic influence on Jewish life. You can see a map of Eretz Israel of that time and the spread of the Hasmonean kingdom of the time. And Jerusalem, you can see it right at the center. Jerusalem was the capital of that kingdom. As David mentioned earlier, we know quite a lot about the history and about the development of Jerusalem of that time from the books of Maccabees, but also from the testimony of this guy to the on the left side, and this is presumably Josephus Flavius, Yosef ben Matityahu, who writes in his books about this unique period and on the way Jerusalem was developing under the hands of the Hasmonean kings. A turning point was, of course, in 164 BCE when Yehuda Maccabee captured Jerusalem and the temple was freed and of course reconsecrated, as we know from our stories. Now, when we speak about Hasmonean Jerusalem, we have a problem. Since Jerusalem was so heavily populated and we have so many periods in the history of Jerusalem, we can say that the remains of the Hasmonean city are covered below layers and layers and layers of history, and it's quite hard to find the remains of that period. So our starting point is the return from Babylonian. During the 6th century, after years, after generations of being far from Jerusalem, some of the people living in Babylonia returned to Jerusalem, and they decided to rebuild the second temple. We can see here a construction of Jerusalem during the time of Nehemiah. Jerusalem gradually started to develop during that time, but a turning point was happening during the 2nd century when the Maccabees, when the Hashmoneans took over Jerusalem from the hands of the Syrians. This is a map, a reconstruction of Jerusalem of that time. At the beginning of the period, Jerusalem was quite a small city, lying on the eastern part of the map. But gradually, Jerusalem started to expand to the western hill, to the area of today's Jewish quarter and Armenian quarter and the citadel of Jerusalem. So from an area, quite a limited area of, I would say, like 100 dunams, Jerusalem spread to an area of 600 dunams, and this was under the rule of the Hasmoneans. A big change in Jerusalem happened in the Temple Mount. As I said, the people who returned from Babylonia, they rebuilt the temple, the second temple, at the end of the 6th century. But gradually, the area of the temple expanded more and more and more. And during the time of the Hasmonean, during the time of Yochanan Horkanos and Alexander Yanai, they expanded the area around the temple and built what we call today Har HaBayit, the temple of the mountain. Of course, later on, during the time of Herod the Great, he made a major change in this in the area, and maybe if we'll have some time, we'll speak about this later. This is a reconstruction of Herod's temple, and the remains of the Hasmonean temple are buried beneath the reconstruction of Herod's temple. Of course, we cannot excavate in this area, so we don't have much information about the way the Hasmonean temple or the Hasmonean temple during that time looked like. I would like to mention a major change in the notion of pilgrimage during the time. This map, the map that I show you right now, is a map of the Mediterranean Sea, as you can see. And look at, please, at those small red and blue signs. These are the places where Jews were living during that time. And gradually, Jerusalem was turned into a pilgrimage city. Gradually, Jews started to make a pilgrimage from not only other regions in Eretz Israel, but also, of course, from Babylonia, also from North Africa, from Greece, from Asia Minor, from Italy. So there was a true need to enlarge the area of the temple, and more pilgrims started to venerate the temple, started to visit Jerusalem of that time. This is the eastern wall of the Temple Mount, and you can see here very clearly this famous stitch that connects the two periods in the history of the Temple Mount. To the right of the picture, you can see the building of the Hasmonean temple, typical stone masonry from that time, huge stones. And from the other side of the stitch, you can see the Herodian expansion of the temple. So there was a big change in the temple, the area of the temple, and of course the temple itself, and it developed into a major pilgrimage site. I spoke earlier about the expansion of Jerusalem, and one of the major enterprises that the Hasmonean priests and kings were involved in was the building of a new wall of Jerusalem. What is named by Josephus Flavius as the first wall. There were 3 walls in Jerusalem of the Second Temple period, and I'm speaking now about the first wall. And the remains of that wall were excavated, were found quite recently on the slopes of Mount Zion to the south of the old city, and you can see something quite magnificent. You can see the quarry in the lower part of the picture, and then on top of it you can see the Hasmonean wall from the second and first centuries, and then on top of it later remains of a later wall of that time. So this area was part of Jerusalem of that time, and we know some remains of that wall from other parts of Jerusalem as well. Those of you who visited Migdal David, those of you who visited the citadel of Jerusalem, know that right at the heart of the citadel. We have some remains of that wall, the wall from the times of the Hasmoneans. Another thing that we know that the Hasmoneans built in Jerusalem was a palace. They built a palace in Jerusalem. Unfortunately, archaeologists haven't found this palace, but we know that it was quite big building located next to the Temple Mount. We know a little bit about the construction of palaces during that time from other places in Israel, like the Hasmonean palaces in Jericho, Masada, and other sites as well. So this was their palace. I want to speak a little bit about the people living in Jerusalem of that time. And this is what I show you here is the model of the second temple period, the one that was located for many years next to the Holy Land Hotel. It was later removed, as you know, to the Israeli Museum. So Michael Aviona, Professor Michael Aviona, who made this model, reconstructed the upper city of Jerusalem with very big villas. He thought that this area was built with huge villas, and indeed during the excavations that were done in this area, in the Jewish quarter after 1967, many houses, many domestic houses were found, and these houses are huge houses. These are mansions, I would say, inhabited by the rich people of Jerusalem of that time. And what is very interesting is to see that in the lower part of those houses, we have, in many cases, not only cisterns to collect water, but also many mikvaot. This was an essential part of the houses in these areas. And in one of the houses, this was found. This is not Hanukkah, of course. This is, of course, a menorah that was located in the temple, in the area of the temple. We don't know, of course, precisely how the menorah looked like, and this menorah is quite different than the way the menorah in the Titus Arch looks like. It seems that this is a more accurate description of the menorah from someone who knew the menorah because he was a citizen of Jerusalem. A word about what the Hasmoneans did with the water system in Jerusalem. One of their major enterprises was bringing water from far, from south, from springs that were located, I would say, like 20 kilometers to the south of Jerusalem, and they were led by aqueducts to Jerusalem, to the Temple Mount. This was presumably done during the 2nd century BCE. So these are some of the things that were done by the Hasmoneans in Jerusalem. I want to finish by saying that Herod the Great, who ruled Eretz Israel during the 1st century BCE, expanded Jerusalem, of course. He expanded the Temple Mount, he built the Temple Mount, he expanded the temple, and of course he followed what the Hasmoneans were doing during their time of rule. I want to maybe if some of you have remarks or questions, I can answer.
I saw something on the internet that said actually the temple was about 600 yards south of the mount, and they found some archaeological remnants of it. Do you have any comment on that?
Yeah, I can answer that. Once in a while, we have some researchers who are claiming that this is not the right location of the Temple Mount. And they are claiming that it was located, let's say, in the city of David. Today is the city of David. I think that this is not logical, and I think that the Temple Mount, the temple was located where it is located today, of course, where the those great walls remain from the time of Herod the Great and from the Hasmonean period are still to be seen, of course. So there is no reason to change the books, I think. Yeah. More questions or comments? Something that you would like to add?
Doron, when you talked about the Hasmonean period, are you talking primarily about the years between 167 BCE and the Roman conquest in 63 BCE?
63 BC, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so this is a long period.
I assume, I mean, from what I know, Herod's temple was much, much larger than the Maccabean
It was
temple.
twice the size.
Twice the size.
Twice the size of the Temple Mount of their time. And of course, Herod built a new mountain in Jerusalem. We can say it quite clearly. He built an artificial mountain, a new mountain in Jerusalem. And this is, of course, what we know today. The Western Wall is part of these walls, those remnants of walls that he built during that time. By the way, the Romans tried to destroy the temple in the year 70, and they didn't succeed in that, of course. That's for sure. Okay, so I would like to, just a minute. So first of all, happy, just a minute. So first of all, happy Hanukkah to all of you. And I want to introduce our next speaker, Dr. Naomi Cohen-Center, who is a lecturer in Machon Schechter and the Rabbinical School. She is interested in the intersections between Ashkenazi music and the Israeli sphere. She teaches a few courses about these issues in Machon Schechter. Her dissertation focused on the piyutim, Zbirot Shabbat, sang around the Shabbat table among religious Zionists in Israel. And you can see that she has various fields of interest. So, Naomi, thank you very much.